Alright, let's hope that the washer isn't too loud. Hello, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since I have uploaded. Please ignore the washer. I don't know how loud it is on camera, and I don't know when it will end. But I have been editing like crazy. I met my best friend in real life, and it was an amazing vacation to go and see her, and I've been editing that video literally since I met her back in June of 2022. A lot of things have happened. I graduated, hence my graduation cap. I came to update you guys because I am working on a project. If you have been around my channel, since pretty much the beginning, I was not always Cosmic Cameron, obviously, because there's a lot of trans content on my channel. I used to go by an online persona called Nina Wishes. I used to go by this name pretty much everywhere online, and including that, Nina Wishes was a character actually in a story I was writing. I was writing the story back in 2015 up until like I think 2017. Back in 2015, like this was one of my favorite things to work on, and there were people who even made like fan art for this character, and shout out to all the people who did make fan art for this character and for the story. But I'm here today to announce Nina is actually still around. After I discontinued writing the story, I only discontinued writing the story publicly. Although I did take the story down where it was, I never stopped writing. Ever since 2017, I've been revising, I've been rewriting, editing, all these things for many years. It is pretty much a completely different story at this point. As of scripting this and filming this, which is why I keep looking over here, because I have a little cheat sheet to make sure I say everything, I've kind of hit a natural pausing point in the story where things like, this is going to be a long story, and there's going to be a lot of rising actions and a lot of certain, like, I guess, like, oh my god, what is the word I'm thinking of? A lot of high points in the story with very tense moments, and then slowly coming back down, and it's kind of hit this like flat line where things are going to kind of just stay calm for a little bit, let things chill out. And I'm kind of taking this moment because even though I know where I want to take the story, I don't quite know how I'm going to get there yet. So I wanted to take this time to actually stop continuing writing the plot and actually go back and revise the plot, fill in plot holes. I have a lot of characters that I basically just gave blank names or was just like NPC here. So I'm gonna go back and actually name these characters, kind of flesh them out, and build more on the world and the personality, and I have to do a lot more world building with history and research and words. Words are hard because this is a fantasy-based world, so I have to like Google like what are like ye old timey words for like bro, like after working on this story for so long, I started rewriting it officially back in like 2019-ish, late 2018, beginning of 2019. I haven't been able to really get a lot of feedback on it. It's pretty much been retelling the story to the same people who have already heard it or have been in the creative process with me, with helping me get ideas. And I would really like to share it with more people to hopefully get some constructive criticism and feedback on like, oh, maybe you should pace it a little bit faster here. It feels really drug out. Or maybe you should slow it down here. It feels like it just went by too fast. Or this seems confusing. Could you change it to make it just seem more readable, more enjoyable, or more immersive? So I am happy to announce I am still going to slowly be releasing the rough draft edited chapters on AO3 or Archive of Our Own. It will be slowly because I do only have the rough drafts, especially for the beginning chapters, because I had a very vague idea of where I wanted to take it, and then only about like 15 chapters in was like, okay, I want this type of writing style. So before then, it was very rough, like literally like bullet points of like this needs to happen, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen in order for the next chapter and the next few plot points to make sense. And so now going back, I have to actually flesh out an entire chapter. Unfortunately, I had to go back and kind of fix all that. But I am currently in the process of making the AO3 account, and by the time I am filming this, I will probably cut here and let you know what the username is and where to find the story. Okay, so I am filming this off of my iPad, which is why it is a little bit more gray and a little bit more, like, grainy. But I just wanted to get this clip out there so then you can move on with the rest of the video. I got my invitation and my account set up on AO3, so you can go ahead and find my account at Cosmic_Cameron. Both Cosmic and Cameron have capital C's, and my icon looks like this. It is just a picture of me with coming soon on top of it. Aside from that, I also now will be having a public Instagram that will be following kind of like behind the scenes of me writing. So yeah, and if you want to go look for my Instagram, it will be linked below, and it will be linked below, and it is also called Cosmic_Rin. Cosmic Cameron was already taken, but it has the same icon as my AO3 account, which is just a black and white picture of me with coming soon. Once both accounts are released, those pictures will be in full color and the coming soon will be gone, and then they will be in full effect. By the time this video goes up, hopefully the work should be up and the first chapter should be available. I just have a little bit left to write of the first chapter and then get my some of my beta readers to read through it to make sure it's all good to go, but that is hopefully how the timeline is looking. I'm going to keep my story public, so you do not have to go and get or sign up and wait for an invitation on AO3 to read my story, but it is a good idea to get an invitation, which is basically just enter in your email and then you wait to get an invitation for Archive of Our Own. It's a good idea to get one so then you can bookmark my work and it'll save your place where you are. You can get notifications if I update any chapters. You can leave comments, kudos, all those types of things. So it's a good idea if you want to keep up with the story, but you don't have to. It's not going to be a locked work, so it will be public for all of you to read. But yeah, I will let you get on with the rest of the video. And also by the time that this is uploaded, I will have already written out the chapter and posted the chapter, which my profile and the link to the story will be linked below. Now that all of that information is out of the way, let me tell you a bit about what has changed with the story, like, versus, like, if you're new here, what the story used to be versus how it's gonna be now, some of the main stories, and what to expect from my story. So first of all, the original story was actually centered completely around Nina Wishes, which was actually myself, basically. Of course, not every single bit of the original story was personally from my life or my experience, because it was a fantasy world. I needed some sort of plot points to go on to just make up some filler chapters and stuff like that. But a majority of the story was a certain memory or a feeling that I was having, or thoughts, and all these other things. Originally in the story, the main conflict was Nina looking in, like, mirrors or ponds, any sort of reflective surface, and seeing a different version of herself, an evil version that she called Wicked. And to her, Wicked put, like, these bad thoughts in her head and, like, made her doubt herself and her friends and all of these things. It ended up with Nina starting to doubt herself and starting to believe she must be a bad person because she had this type of thing with her. Like, she saw something in the mirror that wasn't her. She had this voice in her head that wasn't hers. And what good person would have something like Wicked be a part of her? Around this time, this was me realizing I was trans. However, I didn't know what being trans was. I didn't have the language for it. I had never learned about it. And around that time, I was dealing with a lot of, like, hearing about transphobia in the media. So being so young, looking in the mirror, I was like, doesn't look like me. Like, I looked in the mirror and I saw like a young girl, and when I talked, I heard a young girl's voice, but in my head, it just didn't feel like me. And so I genuinely believed that had something wrong with me, or I was a bad person because I was trans. And this story dealt with it a lot and was my way of trying to figure out what was going on. Later on in the story, we discover Amai, which is one of my favorite characters. He's amazing. Amai also has this alternate version of himself in mirrors and reflective surfaces. However, Amai actually accepts his alternate version of himself, and his alternate version of himself accepts him in return. And in the story, Amai tries to help Nina realize Wicked isn't necessarily bad. It's just that Nina is kind of perceiving Wicked as evil because it's something different. It's something new to her. After this time in the story, Nina ends up kind of making up with Wicked and kind of becomes one person again. And it's no longer Nina versus Wicked, it's just Nina. And at close to the end of the story, she ends up cutting her hair short and she leaves and she goes off alone on a mission to find something. And that something was basically supposed to be herself, but I basically just left it off of that cliffhanger and I stopped updating it. And then a few years later, I ended up taking the story down. In the real life, that was discovering who I was and being open about it. And I took down the story because a year later, I came out publicly. And looking back at that story, I was like, oh, I probably should have realized I was trans way earlier than I did. And I didn't keep updating the story because I was in the middle of living it. I had gone off to figure out who I was, and I couldn't just update a perfectly edited chapter that like I loved because I was like, I don't know where this is going for either characters anymore. So I ended up privatizing the story, and later on, I downloaded it for my own computer and then taking it down permanently. And then in 2018, I came out of the closet as a trans man. Since then, the story has changed immensely, and I am so in love with the story and so excited to share it with you. The story itself does not center around Nina anymore. It honestly doesn't center around any one particular character. It's more like one character, then a group of characters until all of the main characters come together to form their group. And it focuses on multiple different sides of a story to tell one cohesive story. Let's dive into the characters that have returned from the old story that are coming back into the new story. A few of the characters I will have to be vague about so then I don't spoil anything, because this story, when I tell you I've been writing it since 2019, like I had to rewrite it completely. I kept pretty much the characters' personalities basically the same, but I rewrote the plot completely. I completely rewrote it. But before I dive into these characters, I do want to preface by saying all these characters I have made up myself. If any of them are similar to other characters in the story, it's purely coincidental. Any names are also purely coincidental. For a lot of them, I ended up just putting in the role they would play into Google Translate, and then cycling it through a bunch of different languages until I found something that I liked, and then scrambled the letters until it found something that I kind of liked. It's a fantasy world. I did not want to keep using a fantasy name generator. And secondly, I do not write physical descriptions of my characters unless it is plot relevant. It is in the plot for a reason. I want your guys' imaginations to run wild. Like, this was especially, I wrote it this way particularly because of the fan art that I saw. It made me so happy to see people genuinely like the character I made, and I want to see how other people interpret these characters based on how I write them, because that's how I creatively make things. Like, I'm not that good at art with people. Like, I love digital art and I love drawing, but anatomy is hard. Anatomy is very hard to draw, and I would love to see how everybody interprets these characters. You can imagine however they look like. Like, if it isn't written down, then you get to make up that part of that character. It doesn't matter if two characters are siblings, family related, or anything. They can look completely different, unless, like, it states these two random people looked very similar. Then just imagine two people that look similar. Like, go wild with your imagination. Honestly, like, there are only certain things that I have in there, but it's because it's plot relevant. Other than that, go wild with what you want. So first, of course, we have Nina, who has stuck around. Although her name has changed, she is no longer Nina Wishes. She is now known as Nina Willows, she, her pronouns. She is a fairy from the Enchanted Forest with long magical blue hair, pointed ears, and purple wings. She is known to be quite the little troublemaker until she takes it a little bit too far in the story and has to deal with the consequences. My favorite character, well, one of my favorite characters, there's two competing right now. One of my favorite characters in the story is Amai. He didn't have a full name in the original story, but now he does, which is Amai Daniel Rose, he, him pronouns. He's actually the only character I have written to have a middle name, and that is because back in 2015, originally I thought about naming him Daniel, which is why that is now his middle name, but I wanted the story to have a little bit more of a fantasy feel to it, so before I ever introduced Amai, I rewrote his name and just changed it. But I thought it'd be a cool little Easter egg to be like, yeah, this is actually his full name, as just kind of a little fun thing to throw back to the old story. Amai has some sort of spell or magical thing placed upon him, which has turned his eyes a magical blue. It is a signal to others that a spell or a curse has been placed upon him. His real eye color will be revealed later on in the story, much later, way later. Amai was from the kingdom of Gali until a horrible incident occurred 2 years ago, and he has been trying to understand what happened ever since. From the original story, our good friends Lonnie and Galleon unfortunately did not make it into the rewrite. It just didn't make sense because these characters were supposed to be basically children. Galleon was a child and Lonnie was a young teenager, and it didn't make sense with the plot of what was going to happen. This is a much more intense fairy tale type story, fantasy story. It's like, I don't want to compare it to Harry Potter because it's not doing the same things, but like same type of fantasy-esque stuff going on. Meanwhile, like, I would assume Lonnie and Galleon would be in like the first few Harry Potter movies. This story is more like the ending movies. Like, there's fun things going on, but there is some very intense plot going on that you will find out about later. There will be a Lonnie background character, kind of as an Easter egg for all of the people who read the original story. And for my family, Lonnie was actually my imaginary friend growing up. So that'll be a fun little reference. And Galleon, he was one of my like one of my favorite characters in the original story, just because he was super silly. So I actually shortened his name, and his name is now the name of the kingdom and the main place of conflict, the Kingdom of Galley. Some of the more vague characters that I can introduce are the King and Queen of Galley. As of right now, they do not have names. I don't know what to name them because I want it to be like an Easter egg or a hint towards something, and I think it'd be so cool to make it a hint towards something, but I haven't figured out what yet. So for right now, I just refer to them as the king, the queen, or other honorific titles. Now, onto some new characters, which I am very excited about. We have the brand new Evelyn, she, they pronouns, the Princess of Galley. Evelyn is known for having prophetic dreams that have helped the kingdom prosper and avoid disasters in the past. But when she begins to have this reoccurring prophetic dream about a boy about her age, seemingly unconscious and locked away somewhere, her parents, the king and queen, ignore her pleas to like send out someone to find them, try to do something, and they actively do everything in their power to make sure that no one in the kingdom or inside the castle ever hears about Evelyn's dreams. A lot of the story deals with real world problems in a fantasy world. And one of my favorite things about writing and language is how you can kind of twist the meaning of things. And that is exactly what I want to do with my story. This story, I want to have show more healthy communication, and that it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to not know, and basically more healthy relationships and exploration and character growth. I truly hope you enjoy it. I love all feedback and constructive criticism, but thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy reading about the new world, Scorpion Grass.